Well, welcome to our viewers in Nigeria and across the world. Lunchtime politics begins right now. Well, organized labor makes good on its promise to occupy the streets of the nation in protest of the recent hike in the price of petrol and the attendant economic hardship. Promises to keep at this until there is a desired response from the government. So 23 ministerial nominees down, 5 more to go as the screening for ministers designate enters day 3 at the Senate. However, in Benue State, there is some controversy over the state's nomination. And 5 political parties in Kogi State are said to have collapsed their structures for the APC governorship candidate as a horse trading intensifies ahead of the November governorship election.
Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever.
We'll begin with the big story. Organized labor has kicked off its nationwide protest against what it described as anti-people policies of the Bola Tinubu administration by occupying streets in the nation's capital, Abuja, and other states across the country. But they are joined by affiliate unions, including the Nigeria Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers, NUPENG, the National Union of Electricity Employees of Nigeria, the National Union of Road Transport Workers, and the Academic Staff Union of Universities. And their demands include immediate reversal of the recent hike in PMS, that's petrol price, school fees, and value-added tax, the fixing of the nation's local refineries in Port Harcourt, Warri, and Kaduna, amongst other demands. There was a sizable number of security operatives comprising officers of the Nigeria Police and the men of the Department of State Security at the Unity Fountain in the nation's capital and at different venues of the protests across the state. On how long the protest would last, the NLC president, Comrade Joe Ajero, told Channels Television that organized labor won't shelve the protest until there is desired response from the government. Take a listen.
The protest is on. It has taken off in all the states of the Federation, bearing some constraints, including police, efforts to equally stop it in some areas. But to be candid with you, there is nothing stopping the president, not even an overture, promise, commitment, offer from the government. So I don't understand why, but it will not hold. The protest is on and it will hold. It is equally, in our own lighter self-interest, to determine, based on the response of the state, whether the protest should be for today or tomorrow or next, or to that come. It is not by mere using forces to stop people from expressing their views. So we are here for the protest and to make a statement to Nigerians that since we started even negotiation, there is nothing we have. That is clear.
The NLC President, Comrade Joe Ajero, speaking at the rally point earlier this morning before they all moved to the National Assembly. And we understand that there's been some development at the National Assembly as the organized labor members have gained access into the premises of the National Assembly. Let's speak with our correspondent, Dele Omoyeni, who's been following the procession in the nation's capital. Well, Dele, we understand that the protesters are in the National Assembly premises. Can you just give us an update on what's going on there right now?
Okay, so, well, Coyote, there's a lot of updates for you at this hour. Right now, as we speak, the protesters, the members of the NLC and the TUC are right here at the National Assembly. You can see just right behind me here. the leadership of the NLC and the CEC are right here on top addressing their members. Well, they've asked that the leadership of the National Assembly come out to address them. However, just about 5 minutes ago, the chief whip of the...
Clearly, there's so much happening there. Perhaps the noise just drowning out Dele's voice. But we'll come back to Dele to bring you all of the updates. As you may have seen in those images, members of organized labor are converged right in the premises of the National Assembly, perhaps for that message to hit home, especially because the National Assembly is the chambers of the people. That is where the people are represented in government the most. So we'll rejoin Dele Omoyeni to give us all of those updates. Not to worry, we of course have our correspondents across the country, across states in the country, who they will be giving us all of the updates. Speaking of the updates, let's go over to Ebonyi State, where there's also the rally holding, and let's take a listen.
Against any individual. It is a protest march against the oppression of the ruling class. It is a protest march against the wickedness from the ruling class. That we cannot afford to take ourselves to work. That we cannot afford 1 square meal. That we cannot afford basic necessities of life. Because their knee is our neck. Our people, you are here because we need to let them know that they should do everything possible to reverse the high price of PMS. They should do everything possible to reverse the increment in school fees in federal institutions. They should do everything possible to make sure that the electricity tariff does not go high. They should do everything possible to reduce the reckless cost of governance. They should do everything possible to make sure the refineries are fixed. They know the truth. They know what to do. But definitely they lack the political will to do that. And we are here as great Nigerian workers. Those who believe in the truth called Nigeria. Those who believe in the prosperity of our country, Nigeria, to tell them to do the right thing.
Take you back to our correspondent, Dele Omoyeni, who is live at the National Assembly. Dele, over to you now for the latest update.
Yes, indeed, Coyote. Well, finally, like I told you before, the protesters, the members of the NLC and the TUC have been access to the National Assembly. Right behind me, you could see the leadership of the unions addressing their members, and they're here saying that this is not enough for Nigerian workers. Also, they demanded to see the leadership of the Senate, specifically the Senate President. About 5 minutes ago, the chief whip of the Senate, Senator Aremu, came down here to join the leadership of the TUC and the NLC. Accompanying him was the senator that represents the Federal Capital Territory, Senator Igwe. But the protesters are saying they want to see the Senate President. Whether or not the senators will oblige them, well, that's another thing entirely. However, I also need to tell you, Coyote, that the leadership of the NLC and the TUC have also said that the president has to come up with a concrete plan to let them know that Nigerian workers will not be taken for granted again. As a matter of fact, they said that the meeting they had yesterday with the representatives of the president was not quite fruitful, and the presidency is not being sincere with them, and that's why they are going ahead with this particular protest. That initially they had resolved that they were going to shelve the strike, but the meeting yesterday did not go well, and that's why they are continuing with this process.
Indeed, Dele. So what are you hearing then from the National Assembly? Because I know the Senate is meant to conduct a screening today of the last batch of the ministerial nominees. But essentially, what does it look like will play out today? And just how long do you think Labour is willing to stay there until they get a response from the leadership of the National Assembly, as you said?
Okay, well, Karen, if I could hear you very well. Yes, the leadership of the National Assembly is being represented here. But just a couple of minutes ago, you had a very loud noise behind me. The president of the NLC, that noise is still going on actually right now. The president of the NLC introduced the chief whip, Senator Ali Ndume as the person who will speak for the leadership of the National Assembly. But the protesters are saying no, they don't want him to speak. They want to see the president of the Senate come to address them. Well, whether or not the Senate president is already seated in the chamber as we speak right now, because the remainder of the nominees for ministerial positions is about to start. Whether the Senate president would oblige them, and perhaps would have to, of course, say that the Deputy Senate president should chair the draft.
Thank you so much, our correspondent Delia Moyani, giving us live updates from the National Assembly. Those were live images you were looking at right there, the labor unions in the premises of the National Assembly. We apologize for that audio quality. It's quite a windy day there at the National Assembly. But Delia Moyani, please get back to us when you have more updates from the National Assembly. But this did not just come upon us today. In a last-ditch effort to avert this protest, the federal government had met with the labor unions under the banner of the Presidential Steering Committee on Palliatives yesterday evening. But clearly the meeting was not enough to avert the protest, as the President's Chief of Staff, Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila, briefed the press on the outcome.
Basically, we laid out the plans and the interventions of Mr. President, as you all heard in his broadcast yesterday. We made it clear that this was just Mr. President's initial rollout and interventions, and that conversations will be ongoing as we go along. And we appealed to Labour. We did appeal to Labour to call off their protest for tomorrow. We found listening ears here, and they did agree that they all accepted that Mr. President's broadcast was a welcome development, and that they'll go back home to talk to the other leaders that are not present today. So we're hopeful that they will do the right thing and call off the strike tomorrow.
The government team told us that what the president has put on the table, it's more or less like a starting point and it's a baseline. So we, on our part, also said yes, that we would have been a bit surprised if that is everything that will be put forward, because for us, we felt that there are some gaps. For us, we felt that if the president has said that 1 trillion naira has been saved in the last 2 months, that what has been proposed is not far-reaching, and that for us, you know, as part of the principle of negotiations, when anything is put on the table, you accept, but you push for more. You ask something about the protest. Yes, they also appealed that we should shelve the protest. Our response was that we are going to go back this evening and also have a conversation around that, and you will hear from us at the end of that conversation.
Let's bring you more on this. We're joined on the program by Comrade Aremu, who is a former Vice President of the Nigeria Labour Congress, the NLC, and Director General of Michael Imodo Institute of National Labour Studies, Ilorin. He joins us live from our Abuja studio. Good afternoon, Comrade, and thank you for joining us on the program.
Yeah, good afternoon, Kadi, and to you, afternoon to all your viewers.
I mean, quite interesting scenes we're seeing across the country, Comrade, and of course from the nation's capital, Abuja, where, you know, organized labor has occupied the National Assembly, really, and they're demanding to speak with the Senate President himself. You have also led protests, naturally. You have vast experience in this, and I'd like to know first, what's your reading of what is playing out?
Well, are you hearing me?
Yes, I can hear you. My question essentially is, having led several protests, what is your reading of this current protest by organized labor against the recent hike in the price of petrol and what it described as anti-people policy of the Tinubu government?
Well, Kadi, once again, good afternoon. We're having an interesting times, as I want to put it. But, you know, I'm giving my, introduction, my profile as a former Vice President of NLC. Once a comrade, always a comrade. But of course, I'm also now managing an institute in charge of labor studies, which means it's also of academic interest. to me, what is going on. But the first thing I want to say is that it's quite a positive development to the extent that Nigeria Labour Congress and TUC live to the promise that they will register their protest in a peaceful manner today, 3rd of August, Wednesday. I think it's quite significant. And in line with our traditions, organized labor kept to its promise, and you could see the power of mobilization on a nationwide basis. And I think it's in line with the opening stanza of our anthem, Arise, O Compatriots, Nigeria's Call of Day. I mean, I'm quite excited that NLC live up to this tradition, including TUC. Peaceful rally, very colorful with all the banners, exhibiting their protest. And also, it's also celebration of democratic process. I'm quite impressed with the signal given by the Inspector General of Police that they will be able to guide the protest in an organized manner, and that everybody has to obey the rules of engagement or protest. Again, that's quite in line with our democratic tradition. We also see freedom of association, freedom of assembly, which is quite commendable. So I quickly want to rub it in that I think for all the parties, including organized labor, government, we can only deepen democracy. We cannot doubt it, because democracy gave us this platform. As you say, Kayode, I've been in this business for long. The increase in price of petroleum product, in fact, the first removal of subsidy was in the 80s under the military. And NLC, we just protested. We put up our counter-argument. NLC office was occupied. Nigeria Labour Congress was dissolved, But today, we have taken the space to show that, yes, government can announce policies, organized labor and citizens have the right to protest. And right from 1999, President Obasanjo has to live with this reality based on constitutional process we have now. So to that extent, I think these are the positives. And also, let me also add this. The soundbite that we are hearing are also very healthy for Nigeria. We are hearing about development, fixing of refineries, the need to be concerned about cost of living. Often we talk of ease of doing business. We are forgetting of ease of living, ease of working, This is also very healthy. I mean, I listen to, what do you call it, the screening going on at the Senate, of the ministerial nominees, but you never, the possible, nominees or ministers who we compliment the effort of President Bola Tinubu, they were never engaged to talk on some of these issues. So the street also brings the issues to the table.
All right.
The need to fix our refineries, the need to be concerned about the plight of the poor, to address minimum wage or working wage. So it's very healthy. And after listening to the president's address 2 days ago, let me round up on this note.
No, we'll come to that, comrade. It's a very important point you're about to go to.
2 days ago.
We'll come to that. It's a very, very important point. But so that we can also get another picture of what's going on across the country, we're joined live by our correspondent, Chris Illems, who's been covering the protest in the nation's commercial capital, Lagos. Chris, please walk us through what is going on right now and perhaps what has gone down this morning already.
Well, I'm actually reaching you live from the Lagos State House of Assembly premises here in Alausa, Lagos, where the procession just ended. It's been like a 4-hour-long procession, which started from under the bridge in Ikeja and then through some of the major streets in Ikeja down to this place. And it's been very, very peaceful. We saw a high police presence. And of course, it's one organized by an organized labor. So it was an organized rally. There wasn't any issues of infractions or whatever. But then they took it peacefully until they got to this place. And of course, they met with the deputy governor, who addressed the crowd, because it was huge, it was monumental. And of course, amongst those that actually addressed the crowd is Femi Falana. He actually spoke extensively on why the government must be seen as serious, dealing with the issues that affect the masses. He wants to know why the government is talking about dealing with corruption, and then the government has not brought anyone to book that actually benefited from the subsidy, so-called subsidy fraud or scam. He wanted to also know why the government isn't talking about fixing their refineries or looking at those who have eaten from the refineries, because so much have been actually budgeted for the repairs of the refineries, and till today, none of these refinery is working. So he asked a number of questions. The issue of living wage also came up. The issue of palliatives for the removal of fuel subsidy also came up. So a lot of issues actually were brought up. But the most important part was that it was peaceful, and they drove home their points.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Chris. Has been with the organized labor, as it is put, from early this morning up until the very end. Thank you so much, Chris, for that update. We'll still have Comrade Aremu with us, joining us from our Abuja studio, giving us a benefit of his decades of experience in labor matters. But we'll go to break now. And when we return, we'll continue with our conversation with Comrade Aremu, plus more in a moment. With our conversation, Comrade Aremu, still with us, is a former Vice President of the Nigeria Labour Congress, joining us from our Abuja studio. Comrade, you were just going to get into that president's speech. We've seen what is playing out in Lagos, peaceful protest. Well, Abuja is still on at the National Assembly, but the question is, what more could or should the president, the government, have done to avert this strike? Yes, the president gave that speech. There was a meeting as well, but it wasn't enough to avert this protest, rather. What more should government have done?
Yeah, okay. Before I quickly address that, I think I also wanted to make the point, and I think Chris collaborated, your reporter from Lagos, how peaceful the demonstration has been. And let me also appreciate the media channel in particular for giving us the best view on a nationwide basis, which also shows that even this protest is pan-Nigeria. It's all about Nigeria. It's not divisive. It's not about ethnicity. It's not about religion. It's about development. It's about welfare of the people. So to that extent, these are the positives. And also, the president's speech is also one positive that came out of this NLC pressure. I mean, there is a consensus that perhaps this is the most presidential delivery by the president, President Bola Tinubu, on a single subject of the economy. He spoke from the heart, and he rolled out a number of policy measures, provision of 3,000 buses, a lot of intervention funds, to help enterprises. I think about 75 of those enterprises that will get some billions of naira as credit, a single-digit interest rate. So very, very healthy development, I want to say so. But the only thing I want to add is that all these issues have to be addressed at negotiating table. I think I've never seen two disputants, who will solve the problem by shouting at each other or talking at crop purposes. Social dialogue is engagement with the center, not on the sideways. Government should not be on the sideways. So we organize labor will not be, but they have to come to the center to negotiate. And I think the president's speech provides the platform for more further engagement. I listened to the TUC president, who said these are not found on the table, so maybe this is the time to interrogate more. If 3,000 buses are not enough, what can we get more? If the credit on offer does not cover all sectors, what can it be on the table? What will go to education? What will go to healthcare, as the president has tried to articulate? But there's enough to chew on the table. Now, the other one, and I think that's the most significant, is that we need structures to be able to address these issues so that we really get proper results. The other downside of this development is that I'm really surprised that so soon, labor and government will be in this kind of avoidable, preventable disagreement, because you also know that President Bola Tinubu was the only candidate who had the whole directorate on labor. And he had engagement in a town hall meeting. Of course, I was involved in that process less. I'm very, very excited about his concern about the need to increase the pay of the working people. I've said so. What we have now is nothing but working poor. People who get poorer on account of working, because the salaries cannot deliver them based on devaluation, high cost of living, inflation. You know, the CBN just rolled out the numbers recently during their last monetary policy meeting. I mean, inflation is almost about 23% now, you know, and that's official. Unofficial is far more than that. And meanwhile, wages have collapsed completely. In fact, we did the calculation now. The current minimum wage is just about $34 US, when actually in 2010, when we negotiated, we were trying to settle around $100, you know, per month. You know, that time was for Nigeria economy to be competitive, you know, like China, we have to take $100. But, you know, it has collapsed from 60 now to $37. I'm happy President was open about that. So what should be done is to look at the tradition, set up presidential tripartite body, although it runs four-year cycle. Then secondly, let the federal government also engage in negotiation with his own, with his respective union in public sectors, encourage private sector to do similar things, so that we address quickly the issue of poor pay of the people.
Right.
And it's smart economics, Coyote. You know, you can't drive recovery for Nigeria without increasing our purchasing power, which is also good for effective demand. So that would be one thing to work out quickly. Then all those proposals on reviving the agriculture, right, addressing the food crisis, all those things must also roll out importantly. But just quickly, whatever the outcome will be, has to be done in an organized manner through negotiation.
Indeed, yes. And you've reiterated that point time and again. But just to follow up regarding you know, the attitude of those in government to labor issues, whether or not you know the Senate whip should meet them or the Senate president, how significant then will it be for the president himself to sit in a room with the labor representatives? Just how significant will that be to what is going on right now? Because, I mean, it looks like we need drastic actions to curb this. As you said, labor creates wealth.
Yeah. Well, significantly, I know the president even met with labor. You know, immediately he came in after that inaugural speech in which he announced withdrawal subsidy. He met, he met with a representative of labor, whether informally or something. So I think this president is not afraid of engagement, as the case may be. But we need real institutional engagement in a structured way, in line with tradition that have been laid down before, in which we look at all the numbers, what the issues are all about, you know, and that will go a long way. The presidential address was also very useful, you know, but the address is different from real engagement, in which who represent the government will have proper mandate. Those who represent organized labor will also have the mandate, you know, to do the proper discussion. And I think that will go a long way to really show that we have really taken labor as critical factor of development, critical factor of production that needs to be dignified, to be nurtured. You know, all the other factors are important, capital, money, land, but if labor is not properly handled, labor is human. You know, if ILO says labor is not a commodity, it's human. It can cry, it can laugh, labor can support, labor can be motivated, labor can be discouraged. But I think what is clear is that we must nurture labor to be able to avoid you know, street protests, and to be where workers should be adding value in an economy that is completely quite depressed now. I mean, I'm very sure for the organized labor, just in line with our traditional Caribbean, even when we are working, we are poor. Is it when, for whatever reason, we are not working, can we get out of poverty? So I think this is a body imposed on labor, but there's a room for engagement. I look at all those key demands of NLC and TUC. They can still be addressed, through quick resumption of high-profile engagement with labor. High profile, I want to underscore that. And it's what we did before the elections. I mean, if we can, labor could be partners with President Bola Tinubu, do the directorate as partners to carry out electoral process. Why should labor not be part of this process in governance? And that we, through proper engagement, ideas will flow. And some of the ideas, they're even very useful, for this government. I think what the NLC and TUC have already shown is that the orthodoxy between market and the state, they are purely academic. Market forces, yes, that to the extent that the forces do not create more problem. Because why the IMF and the World Bank will say, remove subsidy, allow prices to float, it is in the same state they will come and call government to put the market in check when things are not working very well. And I think that's what Labour is putting on the agenda. And we can put us together without compromising the need for market, some level of liberalization in the case of petroleum products. But you must also know compromise public welfare. Even the issue of climate change, Kyle, all the idea that we must move from, what do you call it, carbon emissions to what do you call it, the renewable energies, yeah. United Nations said there should be time frame. There should be just transition. What is good for climate is even good for petroleum product issues. And all the concerns of labor must be addressed. There must be time frame. When are we fixing refineries? Because that's it. To create jobs,
I am quite curious.
Refineries to work very well.
Comrade, I'm quite curious as to why you're not even... I think
if you take...
pardon me, Comrade, I'm even curious as to why you're not even perhaps on this negotiating team to share some of these ideas. But just a second, we need to get an update from our correspondent in the National Assembly, Dele Omoyeni. He's been giving us live updates from that scene. So, Dele, can you tell us what is going on now with Labour at the National Assembly? Has there been any development?
Well, yes, indeed, Coyote. There have been a few developments. Firstly, now the protesters have allowed the Senate Chief Whip, Senator Alin Dume, to address them. But he's doing that right now. But just before then, the president of the NLC, Joe Ajaero, presented a letter to the leadership of the Senate. And some of the items on that letter include the fact that the president, in conjunction with the National Assembly, must stop the arbitrary increase of the prices of fuel, that it drives up inflation. And of course, it kills local industries and jobs. They're saying that the president should also ensure that transportation, the cost of transportation, comes down drastically. They also want the president to fix the refineries on time, as of course allowing Nigerians to import fuel, refined products from other countries is also killing the local refineries and of course taking jobs outside the country. They also of course say that the president should stop the education sector from increasing the price of these fees of students, both in the secondary and in the tertiary level. So they've presented that letter to the leadership of the Senate, represented by the Chief Whip, who is currently now addressing the protesters, Coyote.
Oh, thank you so much, Dele, for that update. Looks like, well, this is still ongoing, very much ongoing. So please get back to us as soon as you have more updates. Our correspondent, Dele Omoyeni, live at the National Assembly, where we understand that a protest letter has now been presented to the Senate Whip, and well, those demands have been made. So let me come back to you, Comrade. So we're clear on the demands now, at least from that protest letter that was given. Stop arbitrary increase in the price of petrol, reduce transport cost, stop education sector from increasing, the what's it called now, the fees of schools, and of course fix refineries. Two of them stick out. By the way, a lot of people are saying most people will not really feel the effect of this up until when schools are about to resume, and then all of those costs will come at parents and others all at the same time, which is why Labour is making these moves now. But is it instructive for you that in the president's speech, he didn't talk about fixing refineries? He didn't talk about that, which is one of the major demands of Labour.
Yeah, I mean, That's what I'm saying, that's the benefit of engagement with society, with organized labor. Because democracy is about participation. Yes, present about 2,000 watts, very remarkable. The work count is full of lots of ideas, You are going to encourage some companies, with some credit. I've already mentioned that. There's also a good soundbite that the reason why he had to carry out this policy was that he wants to remove the power of money for few individuals who are milking Nigeria through the subsidy scam, and that he wants to return back the wealth back to Nigerians. These are good soundbites that also resonate with labor, but I also think that engagement with labor will have been able for him to appreciate the president, for him to know that the key for sustainable development is industrialization, is value addition. We have to stop exporting crude oil. We must add value to them at home. I'm quite impressed with the attempt for Dangote refinery to come on board. I think Dangote has shown that it's possible for us to add value rather than exporting this product. Now, we have done before. We have a legacy for refineries. Why are they not working? We may think of how to fix them and look at LNG formula of public-private management arrangement, but that is similar to we must make sure refineries come back. And that's what the engagement will bring in, because in that engagement, the sector unions will be there. That's Pengasan, as well as Nupeng, who are, for the fact they've been struggling over the years, and they're also part of reform which led to Petroleum Industry Act. One of the things that is also there is that we must make sure we fix refineries. So again, if you ask me, it's only when we go to negotiation that it will be clear. Even if it's an oversight, it will be made an issue that is very, very critical. Even the vehicles that we're buying, I think I will have thought the president should have also said, should be produced at home. You have seen that's the way to add value. You have Amco, you have Nissan, all those buses. We don't need to take this money back to China or go to Germany to go and buy fully built products. We must use this intervention to revive domestic industries, create jobs, because sustainable jobs is also through industries. And I think President Bola Tinubu was very clear on this in his manifesto. This is not the time to, but the benefit will flow more when you engage with all the stakeholders. And I think that's the beauty of what democracy is all about. And I'm so happy from the report you just gave now that in spite of the preferred position of organized labor to have met with the Senate president, they still considered for Senator Udime to address them, which shows that labor is open to compromise, to understanding. But one good turn deserves another. The beauty of negotiation is that nobody gets what you ask for, but you get what you negotiate in the principle of a democracy. But on the whole, we're in an exciting time. I'm impressed with this development because development has been put on the agenda.
Right.
Until now, it's about sharing, it's about who takes what portfolio. Now it's about who govern in a very positive manner. And I think
organized labor
intervention is extremely significant if we build on it to have a win-win outcome.
And organized labor essentially has the weight of the nation on their shoulders. So they're not just there for those who earn salaries. They're actually representing even those who are unemployed, the poorest of the poor,
Absolutely.
the vulnerable Nigerians. So all eyes on them. But, Comrade, you were talking about some of the reviews you tried to do. And you said, at this time, the minimum wage is $34. And, the goal was even $100. And if you do the math quickly, that's over 80,000 naira. So if the president says that, wait, don't worry, a review of the minimum wage is coming. Yes, there's a whole legislation. What should be the minimum of the living wage? Because I see we've moved from minimum wage to now living wage. What should be the minimum?
Well, again, I think nothing can be made to be the minimum if it is not negotiated. Again, we have rich tradition in this respect. Nigeria has legacy of 5 national minimum wage legislations. And the principle remains the same. We're a member of International Labour Organization. Nigeria has signed the convention dealing with minimum wage fixing, because it's not an award. It has to be discussed and negotiated, but the principles are clear. The cost of living, what would be the cost of living for a worker with a wife and four children dependent? What is the cost of transportation? What is the capacity of the economy to absorb it, ability to pay? You know, what are the numbers? Currently, the rate of inflation. You know, I mean, CBN spend all the time targeting inflation. I think it's time for us to also target the pay of the workers to cope with inflation. Beyond, I mean, you jack up the interest rate so that people can, those who are lending money can have rates of return. What of the workers who are living? So again, it's about the number. So, and all this will be negotiated. And normally we have tripartite committee that will drive that. Federal government will have to be there with all its agencies, the CBN, Bureau of Statistics, National Wages and Salary Commission, institution that is even has the possibly the data, you know, has been tested over the years under the current chairman, Mr. Ita, who's doing very well to manage that place. Then, of course, organized labor has to be there, of course. You know, they are the one who raise the proposals. And I hear all stuff, proposals have been said on the table. You know, I know NOGE, National Union of Local Government Employees, talks of minimum wage of about 200,000. You know, I mean, they must have done their own analysis, NLC. Even when we got 30,000, we actually asked for as much as that time as 96,000. That was 2015 or thereabout, you know. So it has to be negotiated. It's not something that we can just talk about. And I know that the minimum wage committee has also been expanded to include the state government. You know, of course, organized private sector, ably represented by Nigeria Employer Consultative Association. So labor issues are specialized issues. They are not just common sense things that we have to do, you know, by impulse. You know, they are really studied. They are things that Ministry of Labor has the capacity to drive, you know, together with all the people who have all what it takes, you know, to engage with all the social actors, you know, and we can now negotiate it. But national minimum is not a substitute for living wage. Minimum is not the minimum floor below which an average worker will not fall, whether private or public. The real living wage will have to be done at sectoral level, you know, by different sectors of workers to look at the numbers, what will take workers to live, you know, not just living wage, just the way we want to talk minimum wage. Well, living means we make us to live, not to live for work, but even to live for life.
Pardon me to butt in. I mean, we're getting to the meat of it, but we have to return to the National Assembly.